On behalf of the Calgary Leadership Forum, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for participating in the democratic process here in Calgary Elbow in our great province of Alberta. I'd also like to welcome the candidates from the political parties, their workers, their supporters, and again, I'd like to call upon and thank you, the voters of Calgary Elbow, and those from other constituencies that have taken the time to participate and come and hear what the candidates from the respected parties have to say. When we look at recent events in Alberta, in Canada, in Calgary, democracy has been bruised. And here, in the issues of Calgary Elbow, we face one of the largest disasters that this country has ever faced. But there are other issues that we're facing in the care of health, education, quality of life, and it goes on and on. What I'd like to talk about in my first few minutes is that working in collaboration among the levels of government is what should be occurring within all three levels of government at all times. What we see is three separate levels of government, and we really wonder if they're working in a focused, directioned way. They have their responsibilities, but in the last little while, as I said, democracy has been bruised in Alberta. There's no voter apathy here tonight, but there is voter apathy in the population, and we have to change that. We've got to have voter responsibility, and each and every one of you that have come this evening is showing that form of responsibility for our democratic process. The candidates are here to serve. They're not looking for a job, but they're there to serve. And Calgary Leadership Forum, we'd like to thank you for coming out and participating in our democratic process. Winston Churchill said, democracy is not the best, but it's better than all the rest. I'd like to end my few words by saying I have a maxim rule of law, and that rule of law is, quote, the law is not to be violated by those in government. Thank you very much for coming. I'd like to now turn it over to Brian Lee, who is the chairman of the Calgary Leadership Forum. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Would you all please stand for singing of O Canada? Bruce Lee, would you please come forward?
And since it's first night of the hockey season, pretend it's Game 7 of the Stanley Cup and the Calgary Flames are not watching from the golf course. Join with me in singing O Canada. O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Okay, now in French.
Well, thank you, Bruce, and thank you, the opera singer on my right. I don't know who it was, but we really enjoyed that. You know, as a former elected officer myself, and seeing this exciting, innocent, naive audience here tonight, reminded me of the very first time I got to speak to a group as a politician. I was 19, I was getting ready to run for city council, and I got invited by the Ladies Auxiliary of Balzac to speak to them. And I was so excited, I prepared my notes, I was practicing in the car as I drove out there. It could be the same, and when I arrived, the chairlady was so excited, she said, Mr. Lee, because you're our speaker, all 12 of our members have showed up. I did pretty good, only a couple of them fell asleep, and after they passed the hat, as we will tonight, and the chairlady looked a bit like Judy, came running up to me and she said, Mr. Lee, I'm so excited because you spoke here today. We raised so much money that next year we can afford to have a good speaker. Well, folks, we spared no expense this evening in making this, and we have 5 awesome candidates for a very important election. History is truly alive in our times. Think about it. Premier Redford resigned on just March 19th. She then resigned her seat on August 6th. The PC party picked a new leader just on September 5th. And the election is called, and it's coming up on October 27th. 4 new MLAs. But never have there been more, in my view, competitive, critical issues at stake than now. History truly is live in our time, and we're going to hear from the candidates tonight to talk about the critical issues, and you're going to get an opportunity to ask questions. If you haven't done so already, we've been passing out these index cards. If you want to submit a question, please jot it down legibly. We'll collect them from you. We have a panel here that go through the questions to take out the duplications. And if the time permitting, we will take questions live from the audience as well. Bob Edwards, our significant historic person from Calgary, once said, "A little learning is a dangerous thing, but a lot of ignorance is just as bad." So we want to shed a lot of learning here this evening. Justice Louis Brandeis said, "The most important political office is that of the private citizen." So I'm thrilled we have so many private citizens here this evening. We have already drawn for the speaking order, and I'm going to announce that in a moment. But first of all, let me explain to you that so we stay on time and so everybody gets equal time, we have a timer. And I'd like to introduce our timer, and that is Sandra Miller. And Sandra Miller is going to stand at 4 minutes, and she has a yellow color. It's actually a bag from the dollar store. She's going to sit at 4:30, and when she stands, please stand, the candidates are going to be done, and you can start throwing buns. Well, wait a minute, you don't have buns. At any rate, the candidates are going to be done, so 5 minutes. All right, thank you very much. So that's how that's going to work. Again, we want to make sure we move through pretty quickly. I want to introduce to you our question panel, and Bob Mertens-Poole is the chair of our question panel. Bob, stand and be recognized. Ah, shucks. Also standing beside him will be Steve Chapman and Tony Morris. Let's give them a round of applause for volunteering to do this. Thank you very much. When we get all your cards, we're going to take a quick break so we can collect them all. You'll get a chance to talk to the candidates after their opening statements, and then we'll mosey on. Just a quick word about the Calgary Leadership Forum. We are 9 years old. Our mission is to improve the quality of life for this and future generations. We hold debates, we hold private receptions, we do policy papers for all levels of government. We've said we're nonpartisan, but really we're multipartisan because everybody from every political persuasion is involved, especially and is clearly represented on our board. You're invited to join us. We have a Facebook website, we have memberships at the front as well. Please feel free to do so. So ladies and gentlemen, to hear from our candidates, I will not be doing an introduction. Let me just tell you the order. We'll lead off with Gordon Dirks as the first speaker, followed by Greg Clark, number 2, followed by John Fletcher, number 3, followed by Stephanie McLean, number 4, and followed by Susan Wright, number 5. I would ask that when I call a name that you give them a warm, enthusiastic applause, because I honor anybody who's really to step up and commit their lives and step into the public arena and offer themselves for public office. So, our first speaker, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Our first speaker, would you please welcome Stephanie McLean.
I think it's Mr. Dirks.
Pardon me, Stephanie Dirks. Oops.
But thank you.
We know what, why don't I do that all over again? Stephanie, would you like to stay there or would you like to come here? It's your choice.
It's Gordon Dirks first.
Oh, Gordon Dirks first. My apologies. Gordon's, yes. Gordon, you're going to stay? I got it. Thank you. All right.
Shall we go?
We should go.
Ready to go.
All right,
thank you to everyone for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here this evening and join together in this wonderful facility. I've been listening to your issues and concerns as I've been knocking on doors, and one major issue clearly is last year's flood. Lives, families, homes, businesses were devastated. People have waited too long for action after the flood, and that's why in the first 6 days after our swearing in, Premier Jim Prentice and his new cabinet acted. At my recommendation, we tripled the number of staff to process the DRP applications. We're moving forward with flood mitigation upstream on the Elbow, and will continue to assess the McLean Creek and the Calgary Tunnel options, as well as negotiating a long-term agreement with TransAlta on water levels in the Ghost Reservoir. We listened, we heard, and we acted, and that's what leadership does. I'm running to be your Calgary MLA because I want to continue to champion the interests of Calgary Elbow and be the MLA you deserve. An MLA who is present, accessible, who listens, and who acts with leadership on your behalf. Our new Prentice government is guided by respect for Albertans, for Alberta tax dollars, and Albertans' priorities. With this in mind, our new government will invest in public education, strengthen communities, focus on fiscal responsibility, restore public trust in government, and maximize our natural resources, and establish Alberta as an environmental leader. So let me speak briefly to these 5 points. Public education's in my bloodstream, and I believe every Alberta child should have access to the highest quality public education, and each of our graduates should have access to world-class colleges and universities right here in Alberta. As your education minister, I'm already beginning to revisit curriculum changes to ensure that Alberta's schools deliver the basics and incorporate 21st century competencies, innovation, communication, critical thinking, in keeping with that great document and the recommendations of inspiring education. And our students deserve the best in learning environments. Today, we announced a massive increase in funding to build 55 more new schools. That's in addition to the 50 that are already in process, as well as injecting an additional $100 million more to double budgets for every school board in the province to fast-track maintenance and renewal of existing schools. In recent days, I've reviewed the plans for the Elbow School, and as your MLA, I can tell you I'm committed to rebuilding that school for students here in Calgary Elbow. To strengthen communities, I'm working with Cabinet colleagues to ensure all Albertans have access to quality health care. Frontline providers do a great job, and I know that from personal experience, but we need better outcomes from the system overall. We must support our seniors and wherever possible enable them to remain independent in their communities. And a priority of mine will be to advocate for a major program of construction of long-term care beds. I believe strongly in balancing and protecting the rights of all Albertans and in the work of the Human Rights Commission to strengthen our communities by fostering equality and reducing discrimination. On the fiscal front, while we're building infrastructure that Albertans desperately need, we also need to spend within our means. We will not run deficits to finance the basic operations of government. We will save for the future. We will not have a sales tax. Under Jim Prentice's leadership, we are restoring public trust, putting an end to entitlement. The Accountability Act, to be introduced this fall, includes clear guidelines regarding conflicts of interest for all political staff and senior civil servants. We've ended the practice of sole source contracts and put an end to sweetheart government contracts for political staff. And when it comes to political appointments, qualifications and merit must win the day, not connections. We must sustain and grow a vibrant energy economy, the economic engine of our province and country. The Prentice government will take action to increase market access and become a global leader at the same time in environmental performance. In closing, Premier Prentice is the leader to deliver a stronger future for Alberta. I believe in the value and ethic of public service. Calgary Elbow needs an MLA who will advocate for everyone and provide hope, inspiration, and action. And with a seat at the Cabinet table and on Treasury Board, I pledge to be that MLA for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon Dirks, number 1, Progressive Conservative. Candidate number 2, Greg Clark, the Alberta Party.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you to the Calgary Leadership Forum. Thank you to my fellow candidates for stepping up and participating in democracy, and thank you very much to all of you for coming out. It shows that you have an appreciation for the democratic process, but also that you care about Alberta and may not be as interested in the Calgary Flames as some of us. So, I also care greatly about Alberta. I love this province. I'm very lucky to have been born and raised here in Calgary, Elbow, and have lived pretty much my entire life here. Alberta is a great place to live for many reasons. On one hand, we look out for one another. Albertans look out for our neighbors. We care for each other. And there was no better example of that than the response from our communities beyond the flood area to help us out when we were flooded last spring in the most devastating natural disaster in Canadian history. But Alberta is also a place of great innovation and entrepreneurship. There's really nothing we can't do in Alberta if we set our mind to it. I myself am an entrepreneur. I created a management consulting company doing knowledge management and information management in oil and gas. And to translate, that's one of those 21st century knowledge economy type businesses that creates jobs that really didn't exist 15 years ago. It also gave me a great insight into the oil and gas industry, having worked directly now within oil and gas for about 15 years. Not working just for one company, but working for dozens. Understanding the strengths, the opportunities, the challenges, and many of the good things that go on in our oil and gas industry, I think gives me a great background to be your MLA here in Calgary Elbow. I gave up that company about a year ago to go into politics full-time when I became leader of the Alberta Party. And I haven't drawn a salary in more than a year, because I believe politics must be about public service, not self-interest. My family, my wife is a palliative care physician at the Foothills Hospital. I have daughters in grade 2 at William Reed Elementary and a daughter in grade 5 just down the street here at Elboya. I'm born and raised in Calgary Elbow, but it's a constituency in a province where we're very fortunate to have people choose to come and be part of that entrepreneurial spirit, part of that can-do feeling that makes Alberta such a great place. The issues that I'm hearing from my neighbors in Calgary Elbow and when I go knock on doors here during the campaign, very much are education. We must build our education system as a whole. Yes, we need to build new schools, but we must commit to funding inner-city schools. Our inner-city schools are overcrowded to the point where William Reed replaced the library this year with 2 classrooms because the school is so far over capacity. There are 34 5-year-olds in 1 classroom at William Reed this year. That's not acceptable to me. It's not acceptable to the parents at William Reed. It's not acceptable, I think, to any of our community. It's simply not good enough, and it's the result of 10 or more years of PC government underfunding and mismanagement of our education system. In healthcare, Jess tells me about the people lining the hallways at the Foothills Hospital. We hear about the crisis in the emergency room in the Rocky View Hospital. We hear about the crisis in long-term care, the lack of availability of home care to keep people in their homes as long as possible. Our seniors deserve much better than this. It's the result of many, many years of underfunding and mismanagement and simply not building the long-term care beds that we need in this province. My family and I were hit by the flood last year, and it was a devastating experience. But the feeling I got from that was gratitude, which may surprise some of you. Gratitude for the help that we got from our neighbors and communities. I co-founded the Calgary River Communities Action Group in response to the flood and have a track record of standing up for my community. I will continue to stand up for Calgary Elbow and advocate for a better deal for people who have not got even a portion of what they deserve from DRP. I will advocate for flood mitigation, and I will continue to fight the worst public policy in PC history, the floodway buyout program. We must earn market access in Alberta by improving our environmental performance. We must focus on post-secondary education and entrepreneurship to diversify our economy. And with that, I look forward to a great discussion this evening. Thank you so much for your time.
Speaker number 3, John Fletcher, Wild Rose.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Moderator, and my fellow candidates for being here, and I especially like to see such a large audience who are participating in this exercise for democracy, so thank you all. I'm going to talk a little bit about my background and then why I'm running. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and what I bring to the table. I grew up in Edmonton. My father was transferred to Ontario, so I ended up going to McMaster University where I got an honors BA. But I did that through the regular officer training plan. So the Army paid my way through, and after 4 years I was commissioned into the regular Army. I served my country in Camp Petawawa and also Camp Valcarce, always with the Field Army. I was accepted for an MBA at University of Western Ontario, so I left the Army. And then I also, when I was at University of Western Ontario, I went to law school and I became a lawyer. I was fortunate enough to meet a fellow by the name of Bill Howard, who ran the law firm of Howard, Dixie, Mackey, Forsyth here, and so he brought me here as a lawyer. But initially, I've always been a soldier. And when I got here, I went down and joined the Reserve Army and worked my way up to become the commander of the Calgary Highlanders, and then later to become the commander of all the Army Reserve in Alberta. So altogether, I have 25 years of service to my country as a soldier. At the same time, in the Reserve Army, I was an oil executive for Ranger Oil. A lot of you may remember, we were an international oil company. We were headquartered here in Calgary, and I was the vice president of legal. And during that time, I negotiated international oil and gas transactions in places such as Angola, Namibia, and also in Iraq. So I've traveled extensively, and I have all that wealth of experience with the stock exchanges and the stock markets. As I said, I've been a lawyer for 35 years now, coming up. I'm still practicing. By background, I'm really a corporate securities lawyer, but at present I'm running a real estate lawyer, which is, in this market, has been quite good for me. Furthermore, I'm the chairman of the board of the Corps of Commissionaires, and we have approximately 1,800 employees here in southern Alberta, and we're one of the largest not-for-profit organizations here. I'm on a leave of absence from that organization at present. Now, why am I running? I have to tell you that I've never run for office before, but when I started to see this sense of entitlement and the misuse of public funds, I said, now is the time to stand up. We need people to stand up and stop this. And so that is the reason I'm running. I just thought the 43 years of PC empowerment, it's time for a change. And so that's what brought me to the table with Wild Rose. Now we have to say that the Calgary Elbow needs a representative. It hasn't had a representative for some time now. And I've been out door knocking a lot. I've pretty well covered half the constituency, and I certainly will cover it all before the election. We need someone to stand up and fight. We need to strengthen the opposition. We need a critic, especially on floods, schools, and healthcare. So what I want to do, if I'm elected, I want to hold the feet to the fire of the PC government. I want to talk about flood mitigation. I want to talk about flood mitigation. I want to talk about school fees. I want to talk about busing. I want to talk about senior care, and that's what I promise that I will do. So I look forward to hearing the policies that are coming up and listening to the debate and participating in it. Thank you very much.
Number 4, Stephanie McLean, New Democrats.
Thank you. I'm going to use this as an opportunity for you to get to know me a little bit better than most of you in the audience do. I want you to all know that I love Calgary. I was born here at the Holy Cross Hospital. I'm very proud of that. And this is my home. It is here that I've grown my family, I've educated myself, and where I choose to live and work. By trade, I am a criminal defense lawyer and a family law lawyer. Shortly after I was inducted as a lawyer, and at the ripe age of 27, I opened my own business, and I operate as a sole practitioner. I am also an employer. By way of my family background, I have one sister. She is an athlete with the Special Olympics. She's a swimmer and a gold medalist. We were raised by one parent, my mother, And she went back to school at 50 years of age and became a registered nurse. I'm very proud of her. My father was a petroleum engineer here in Calgary, and before that, he actually began his career in the oil fields as a rig hand. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2008 after a long battle with cancer, and during that time, we truly experienced our crumbling healthcare system. My husband and I married in 2011, and we have 2 lovely little dogs, one Shakespeare and Moki. I became a lawyer because I wanted to help people, and I think I do that. My clients sometimes tell me that I do. And I'm running as a candidate in this election for the same reason. I want to help people. But also because I'm frustrated in my career due to the crumbling legal aid system. People who are earning $1,300 a year on AISH are too wealthy to qualify for legal aid. We have a crumbling justice system, and I experienced that particularly in the realm of family law. I'm also frustrated and disappointed in the governance of our healthcare system, our education system, and generally our social welfare system. I've lived my entire life in Alberta. I have only ever known the PC government, and I have yet to experience the Alberta advantage. My family has yet to experience the Alberta advantage. I have experienced poverty growing up with a single mother. I understand the struggles of the physically and mentally handicapped in this province. I've seen the successful Calgary engineer be reduced to living in a hospital room with 5 other patients. I've borrowed, I've begged, I've worked my butt off through 2 degrees, and I have received and known, as most of you do, the benefits of our oil and gas industry in this province, and I truly understand the value of it. I have become a small business owner, and I've been successful at that. It's caused me to really understand the value of a hard day's work, the value of $1, and the drive it takes to be successful. Vote for me. I'm actually not quite finished, but I appreciate the response. I have the heart, I have the drive, I have what it takes to advocate for the residents of Calgary Elbow, and I can guarantee that I will be a strong advocate for you. People like me are looking for a progressive alternative, and a vote for the NDP is a progressive vote.
Thank you, candidate number 4, Stephanie McLean, New Democrats, and candidate number 5, Susan Wright, Liberal.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone. I'd like to thank everyone for coming today, and I'd like to thank my fellow candidates for being here and participating in the democratic process. So I'm a lawyer, again, there's 3 of us, with over 26 years of experience in the energy industry. I started as a litigator with Bennett Jones, and then I moved in-house with Unical and Nova Corporation, and then Alliance Pipelines. I've worked on projects in Asia, Europe, the United Kingdom, and the US. I've been an executive with the energy industry now for 18 years, and I know what makes our energy industry tick. I'm also a volunteer. I've volunteered all my life. I'm on the board of directors with the Calgary Heritage Initiative, which actually was instrumental in preserving the Elbow Park School. I've been judging law school moots now for more years than I can possibly remember, and I've been active with the Governor General's panel on women in the oil and gas industry. I'm a community activist. I like to jump in and help residents get through bureaucratic red tape. That's one thing lawyers do well. And I also write a blog called Susan on the Soapbox, which has received national legal recognition. Most importantly, though, I'm a wife and a mother, and I understand and have experienced firsthand the heartbreak that comes from having a healthcare system that is stretched beyond its means and an education system that cannot possibly serve the needs of the students. And that's why I decided to take a break from my law school or my legal career and actually step into the political arena. Now, we all know that Alberta is the richest province in Canada, but what we can't figure out is why we have such lackluster results on the social equation side. And we seem to find ourselves in a situation where we have the highest high school dropout rates. Our emergency and surgery wait times are much too long. Our elderly and our frail are getting less than stellar treatment. Our environmental performance is hit and miss, with the result that our energy products are having difficulty getting to market. And while the new premier is busy eliminating things like planes and fancy new license plates, that's just window dressing. And the real issues that matter to the people of Calgary Elbow are the things I'm hearing on the doorstep. Healthcare. Dr. Paul Parks, the head of the ER medicine sector of Alberta Medical Association, said that our healthcare system is on the verge of collapse. He waved the red flag in 2010, and the PCs ignored him then, and the PC government is ignoring him again. In fact, when he tried to reach out to them and to the unelected health minister and the unelected premier, they said they were too busy to talk to him. Well, I'm not too busy to meet with healthcare professionals. I've talked to them, and the one thing I've heard loud and clear is that you've got to listen to the front line because they know where the problems are, and you also need to bring decision-making down to the more hospital-sized level. On the topic of education, the residents of Calgary Elbow are desperately worried that their children are being packed into schools like sardines, and they're not getting the attention they need for their special needs. The funding for education isn't something that you can just tie to inflation or dream up a hocus-pocus formula like the one created by our last MLA in this riding. We need a clear vision for education based on feedback from educators. And it's crystal clear to the people of Calgary Elbow that simply switching out the premier and putting in 2 unelected health ministers and unelected education ministers isn't going to change anything. Furthermore, the answer to our problems isn't, as some would have you believe, to simply privatize everything. Now, I'd like to talk about the flood. In 2013, we experienced a terrifically horrific tragedy and natural disaster. The PC government's solution to this flood was the classic case of too little, too late. And they promised to make flood victims whole, but the disaster relief program failed them completely. It's time for the government to keep its promise to pay out all of the claims that have been requested by the recipients and to move forward with a provincial flood insurance program and also a comprehensive flood mitigation plan. One last point on transparency and accountability. You may have seen those orange signs that have been posted on the trees, the Save Our Parkland signs. That actually is the result of a group of residents who are desperately concerned that a chunk of the Hillcrest Park is going to be sold to a private investor, a developer, for his own personal use. So I said public park is going to be sold. The public parks belong to the public. Municipalities are creations of the government. An MLA must step up to ensure that the municipality operates at the highest level of transparency and accountability. As your MLA, I will go forward and make sure that all levels of government are operating with the same level of openness and transparency. It's the point of collaboration that Brian was talking about. So I'm dedicated to this community. I'm dedicated to you as the residents. I need your help. I need your support. And I'm asking you to help me make Calgary Elbow a better place to live, work, and play. It starts here. It starts now. My name is Susan Wright, and I'm running for the Alberta Liberals.
Well, folks, I believe we've been well served by all 5 candidates for their clarity and their brevity. Let's give them one more round of applause. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask our 4 volunteers, Rob Warnock, Bruce Lee, Steve Chapman, and Marika Knipscher, if they'd please stand. If they'd please stand and move towards the aisles. These 4 will be collecting question cards. If you have not already turned them in, please pass them on to one of the 4. We are going to take a 5-minute brush, flush, and rush break. And the reason for that is to give an opportunity for us to collate all the questions and be ready for the Q&A session. So folks, enjoy your time. Please turn in your questions cards to our 4 volunteers, and we will see you in 5 minutes.
We'd like to thank the Calgary Leadership Forum for the opportunity to ask the opening question tonight, which of course we'll use to ask 2 related questions. In fact, we provided to each candidate today a more detailed questionnaire on all things flood. And we have posted that on our website at protectcalgary.com for everyone's reference, and commend you to that. We look forward to your responses, which will be posted for our members' review and consideration. Our group came together to respond to thoughtless policy thoughtlessly implemented in Calgary. Our work has focused on 2 key areas of advocacy for upstream mitigation and the development of reasonable policy regarding land use and development that acknowledges that Calgary has been developed at the confluence of the Bow and Elbow rivers. With respect to upstream mitigation, a couple of weeks ago, Premier Prentice announced the provincial government's commitment to one of the 3 key mitigation infrastructures on the Elbow watershed, being the Springbank diversion. Certainly that clear and definitive statement, the first that we've heard from any level of government, was welcome news. But no one will really believe it until construction actually begins. So given that Calgarians expect their inner city and downtown to be protected from the next inevitable flood, and that the Springbank diversion will not be sufficient to address historical water flows, which is what we expect, we ask each candidate to discuss which additional infrastructure project or projects they would champion and why. And very much related to this is the current initiative to create the Floodway Development Regulation under the new legislation called the Flood Recovery and Reconstruction Act. If you're not familiar with this, you should be familiar with it as soon as possible. We have significant concerns with this, principally that this initiative is proceeding before upstream mitigation projects have been completed, including operational changes to infrastructure already on the Bow River, and before updates to the flood hazard mapping has been done. We also do not understand how Calgary is not granted the same exemption to these rules as has been granted for the downtowns of both Drumheller and Fort McMurray, which are significantly built within the floodway, not the flood fringe. So we ask each candidate to comment on their views on both the process to create new policy and its content. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So folks, we have, we'll start on my far left, your right, and John, you get the first shot at it. We'll just work our way this way, 3 minutes for each of you to answer that first question.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much for the question. As you pointed out, I've been down in Roxbury. It's like a bomb went off down there. I mean, it's just terrible, and something has to be done. And I just want a little history here, because we used to have a sustainability fund for $17 billion here in this province, and that was exactly for flood mitigation. But that got dissipated over the years by the PC government. Now it's nothing. So there's a real problem there. Then we had a big flood in 2005. Then there was a study about what to do about it, but no one released the study. So that was kept quiet from the public. And then all of a sudden we had the huge flood hit in 2013, and I think that was just a terrible act of negligence by the PC government. How would we work on the flood mitigation? This is really important for me, because we know there's another flood coming. We don't know when, but there's one coming. We have to do something now. We have to work on flood mitigation now. The Springbank dry reservoir was announced, but we know that that's not enough. It has to work in tandem with one of the others, either the tunnel from the reservoir over to the Bow River, or else the McLean Creek Dam. What we would do, unlike what Mr. Prentice did, he blindsided Mayor Nenshi, just came out and said, hey, this is what we're going to do. That's not how we would do it. We would work in tandem with, I'm not an engineer, so I can't, I'm a lawyer. But what I have to tell you, we're going to work hand in hand with the mayor of Calgary, because we have to save the city. We cannot let it's a question of saving the city, and that's why we have to spend the money to do that. So Which of the two, I don't know. I'm not an engineer, but I do think that the Springbank one has a problem with the landowners now, and so that could be held up for some time. We got to get onto this right away, and we need an MLA who will fight, hold the government's feet to the fire, and make it happen. That is the task for over, I would say, the next 6 years to get all that in place, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 of the flood mitigation process. So that would be the process, working with the mayor and his engineers, as well as the provincial government. But also we need to work with the federal government as well, because they have a whole bunch of money for DPR here. $1.4 billion. They're for the disaster relief program. But only a little bit of that money it's there, but the province has not taken advantage of it. They've only spent, I think, about $88 million so far, and maybe $6 more million on appeals. So we would work closely with the feds. I don't know if my time's up, but hopefully I answered your questions.
All right, we're doing good here. Thank you very much. Gordon Dirks.
Well, this is a matter that has great urgency attached to it. I think everybody in this community senses that deeply, and I certainly sensed it when just a couple of nights ago I was sitting at the dining room table with the community president of Rideau Roxborough, hearing the stories really, of the devastation of people's lives and families and homes and businesses. But he also said something that I think resonates with all of us. He says this wasn't just about Elbow. This was about Calgary. And we need to take steps to ensure that we are doing everything we can to protect our great city in the future. If the downtown were to get taken out by a massive flood, we can't begin to estimate the impact that that would have on our families, on our businesses, on our economy, and the spread that it would have throughout the province. So there's great urgency. It's also about flood volume management. And the reason why Mr. Prentice and I immediately took action on the dry reservoir upstream from the Elbow is because that does provide an immediate flood volume management solution. It's not the only solution, but there needs to be a quick solution that will take action. And this one is a viable solution that can do that. It needs to be in tandem with other things which have already been announced, for sure. There are other options as well, the up McLean Creek. We're not sure exactly what all of the environmental impacts are on that. And of course the tunnel, which is a massive project, and we're not sure about all of the environmental impacts with that one as well. But nothing should be off the table. And it's very possible that we are going to need another solution in addition to the Springbank dry reservoir. It's the best quick solution. It disrupts the fewest people. It keeps the land in use for the people who own it unless a flood comes. And so I think that's the right action for leadership to take at this point in time. We do need to ensure that we are fairly treating people. I think that the process that was announced previously for individuals was frankly a mess, and government could have done much better. One of the reasons why I accepted Mr. Prentice's invitation to serve in his cabinet is because I really do believe government needs to be executed well with people's hearts and minds in view. And that wasn't always the case here. And so I'm committed to ensure that we have the proper long-term flood mitigation that we need to put in place. And what we've done so far is a proper step in the right direction, and we're going to continue to do that.
Thank you. Stephanie McLean.
Like so many of you, like so many of you, my husband and I were directly affected by the flood. We were living just off of 24th Ave and 4th Street, and our building saw, I think it was 30 million tons of water. Looking to my husband no, he's laughing at me. He's an engineer, so when I get the numbers wrong. But anyway, we were out of our building for a number of weeks, and it looked like a war zone, and it was extremely surreal. You know, we really appreciated the sense of community and support, but at the end of the day, we were without our homes. And we were just thankful that we had friends and family that we could rely on during that time. Now, that being said, there's still too many people waiting for flood relief. We were lucky in that our building insurance was able to cover the building's losses. Now, my friend Mr. Dirk says that they have these plans that they want to implement, and perhaps the spring bank is not going to be good enough. Well, we know it's not going to be good enough. And in 2007, we had a flood mitigation plan that the PC government put out, and they didn't follow through with it. And as a result, they were not prepared for this disaster, and it caught them by surprise. And they still don't get it. They implemented this, they decided to implement this plan without any consultation with the city. And if this is any indication of how this government is going to run, how they're going to run the government and make decisions for us, top down, without any consultation, I think we're in the exact same boat we were before under the old Redford regime. Now, the NDP government, however, and myself as a representative will work with the city in consultation and work with the engineers that are assigned to this particular project. In our opinion, we really need to update the engineering studies and our environmental studies to reflect the reality of the situation. We need to have a strong understanding of what is actually going to work, and we need to plan for it, and we need to implement those plans. We want to work together as a partner, and practical things that need to be implemented include preparing buildings for floods. New buildings need to be built to a particular standard to ensure that flood waters are not going to affect the building. Was that time, sorry? Okay, thank you. That's essentially our position. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Wright.
Thank you. So Terry, you asked two questions. You said, which of the scenarios or the solutions would we suggest or propose? And the second one was, what was our view of the process that has been undergone so far under the Flood Recovery and Reconstruction Act? And you listed a number of concerns you had with that. So let me start with the first question, which of the proposals should go ahead? I'm concerned, that, as are some of the people at this table, that the Springbank dry reservoir solution that has been proposed by Mr. Prentice and has been referred to here is not the best quick solution. In fact, it's one of three solutions that are on the table, and the other two solutions have not yet been fully investigated and analyzed. And it seems to me that if you're going to try to do the best thing for the city and the area and the residents, you will get all the information together first, and then you'll make a call without slapdashing something in there, which may be, well, it'll cost $200 million and may not do anything for you down the road, given the lack of data that you have that you're starting with in the first place. So my suggestion on that would be finish the work we started. Mayor Nenshi started from that perspective and said he was stunned to see that the provincial government came out with that solution without even consulting with the city. So that's my first point, is finish the work and then make a reasoned decision based on real facts. And the second question you asked was about the process, and you referred to the Flood Recovery and Reconstruction Act. I'm appalled with any process that does not adequately consult the population that's going to be impacted and the city. It's our tax dollars, it's our livelihoods, it's our lives. And if we end up going forward with a process and don't even bother to engage the people who will be impacted, then we're really doing everyone a disservice, and frankly, that's not democracy. So let's stop for a minute and think about this. The process here has to be more consultative. What the Springbank dry reservoir solution has done is pitted the citizens of Springbank, Redwood Meadows, and Bragg Creek against all of the rest of the province. The flood brought us together. The Prentice solution is going to tear us apart. So my position on that is not the way to go. You do true consultation first.
Thank you. Greg Clare.
As you know, we lost our basement in the flood last year, and I consider myself incredibly fortunate that it was not a lot worse. There are a lot of people in our community that are still hurting. There's a lot of brave faces, and as I travel, door knock around the constituency, the lawn is cut, the house is painted, there's flowers in the planters, you open the front door, and there's no drywall. There are still people hurting all over Calgary Elbow. Calgary is a world-class city built at the confluence of the Bow and the Elbow River, as are nearly every world-class city. We cannot protect residents if we don't protect downtown, and we cannot protect taxpayers if we don't take action. The Alberta Party has a comprehensive 6-point flood recovery and prevention framework. I'm proud to say that it is, I think, by far the most comprehensive flood framework of any party. The first point is to recover. On the initial response, while heroic, included the very flawed buyout policy. That has staked $80 million, which is half the cost of the Springbank dry reservoir, on buyouts for less than 100 people. There's people along the river in the floodway. There's 250 people who are eligible for buyout, and less than 80 have actually accepted a buyout, which tells you a couple of things. First off, that people love these communities, want to stay there. As a tax-paying citizen, it's a remarkable waste of money. Those dollars are not eligible for federal reimbursement. The second point is rebuild. The DRP, the Disaster Recovery Program, has been trouble from the very start. People were promised, we will make you whole. What they've ended up with is an average of $14,500 each. People are hurting. Lines of credit are stretched. Credit cards are maxed out. People just want to get back into their homes and get on with their lives. Let's talk about flood mitigation. To answer the question, Tony, I think the Springbank Dry Dam must go ahead. I have significant concerns, however, that it will be delayed given some of the landowner concerns. Mr. Dirks used the word immediate. If the spring of 2018 is immediate, then I guess it's immediate, but it isn't. And there's significant risk. If this government can't even build schools, how in the world will they build large-scale infrastructure to mitigate floods? The Glenmore Tunnel has a proven return on investment of $350 million. It's a complex project, but there's no land acquisition issues. The environmental issues can be addressed. The floodwaters flowing down at the exit of the tunnel would be no greater than the waters had they flowed around downtown. It needs to be built. It should start as soon as possible. McLean Creek should also, I think, be given serious consideration. We're talking here about Calgary, but there are people upstream of Calgary who are also at risk in Bragg Creek and other places. The next is the other 4 points I'll get, the other 3 points I'll get to later, I guess. I'll work that into my answer on education somehow. Talk to me later.
And now for our second 3-minute question, Bob Martins-Poole.
I hate to use this term, but we're going to be progressive in that we're going to ask Mr. Dirks to answer the question first, and then we'll go along. Everybody will get their chance to be first. My question is, why are you running, and what are your views in light of recent events in Alberta in seeking elected political office?
Well, I'm running because I believe Elbow needs a very strong leader at the table where there's a voice for the people of Elbow, where there's experience for the people of Elbow, where there's an opportunity for Elbow to be heard and Elbow to make a difference in government. Elbow needs a strong leader. Elbow needs somebody who's going to be there, who's going to listen, who's going to be accessible, who's going to care, and who's going to act. And that's been my passion. My passion is serving the public. It has been for many years. And Elbow needs that kind of a leader. And I'm committed to be that kind of a leader. That's the first reason why I'm running. The second reason why I'm running is because a great leader by the name of Jim Prentice, who I highly respect, came and asked me if I would be willing to join his team and help renew government in Alberta. And I highly respect Jim's integrity. I respect his acumen in business. I respect his political experience that he has, his wisdom in the fields of energy, environment, Aboriginal affairs, and so on. And so I've said to myself, that's the man who is likely best qualified to lead our province into the future. And he asked me to lend my expertise from the field of education to serve as Minister of Education. And I said I'd be willing to do that. I hadn't anticipated this 4 months ago. And I was honored when he came to me, and I thought, I guess if anybody should feel an obligation to run and serve, it should be somebody who understands and who has experience and who can lend that on behalf of people. And so I said I would do that along with Jim. I think the third reason why I'm running to be the representative for Calgary Elbow is because this is a fabulous province. It has great potential, and it needs people who are committed to see that potential realized. And part of that potential is vested in our children. And we need somebody to lead our education world, our Department of Education, who understands education. And I do. I get it. I've been a school teacher, a school principal, a vice principal, a trustee here for 11 years in the Calgary Board of Education, chair of the Calgary Board. And I was meeting this morning with the Alberta School Board Association trustees, talking to them about a wide variety of issues. And so those are the three key reasons why I'm running. The primary reason perhaps undergirding it all is because at my father's knee I learned integrity, and I learned the ethic and the value of public service. And I'm deeply committed to both of those. And I believe that's what Alberta and Elbow needs for an MLA. And I would be honored to have your vote, even the Liberal vote and the NDP vote.